3 weeks ago, I started working the night shift at a city hospital. I'm 32 and have been a nurse for a while. After a messy breakup, I moved to this new city for a fresh start. Night shifts used to bother me, but I wanted to prove myself. The first couple of nights felt normal. I thought I was getting into a routine. But I can't stop thinking about what happened. The hospital is this large, brick building. At night, the flickering fluorescent lights made everything look strange. The halls felt long and cold. You could almost hear the silence if you listened hard enough. It felt unsettling. On my third night, I entered room 408. There was a patient there who was supposed to be incoherent. I remember checking her charts. Just as I was about to leave, I heard her whisper my name. I froze. How could she know me? I shook it off, thinking it was my tired mind playing tricks. That same week, I noticed more odd things. While I was sitting at the nurse's station, the lights above me flickered again. I felt my heart race, but I didn't want to look scared in front of my coworkers. A couple of patients told me they saw figures in their rooms. I thought they were just confused. It was dark, the hallways could easily distort reality. Then came the strange feeling I got every time I passed room 408. The patient was getting worse, but she kept mumbling odd phrases. One night, she said something about a dark figure standing behind me. I felt a chill at the back of my neck, but I turned around, nothing was there. I should have reported it, but my colleagues brushed me off. They told me to stay professional. As the nights went by, I started to feel anxious whenever I worked. I heard whispers in the silence. One night, during my rounds, I approached room 408 again. The door rattled slightly. I opened it slowly. The patient was sitting up, eyes wide open, staring directly at me. I could hardly breathe. She pointed toward the corner of the room. I didn't see anything, but the air felt heavy. On my last shift, I walked down the hall, and something made me look back at room 408. I saw the patient standing by her bed, a ghostly figure staring at me. I blinked, and she was gone. I ran to my station with my heart racing. That's when I heard the whisper again, but this time, it wasn't my name. Was I losing it? I wasn't sure. Were these just tired hallucinations? Maybe something more was going on. I didn't know if I'd crossed a line or if the hospital was hiding something darker. All I knew was that I had to get out. I kept asking myself what was really in room 408. What had I uncovered? The door creaked open in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting just beyond it. I didn't sleep much that day. My mind replayed the events from the night before, fixated on room 408. I decided I couldn't let fear control me. I needed answers. As I arrived for my shift that evening, the atmosphere was heavy, like a storm was brewing. The hospital felt more muted than usual under the pale lights. I took a deep breath and tried to focus. I started my rounds, just like any other night, but I felt the weight of room 408 calling to me. My heart raced as I walked down the hallway, the fluorescent lights flickering ominously overhead. I could almost hear it whispering for me, urging me to enter. After checking on a few other patients, I hesitated outside room 408. I knocked softly, then opened the door. The patient was still there, but her eyes were blank, fixed on something far beyond me. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. "Are you okay?" I asked, stepping closer. There was no response. Suddenly, an elderly nurse stepped into the room behind me. "Keep your distance," she said sharply. "She's not herself tonight." "What do you mean?" I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "She's been different," the nurse replied, looking concerned. "You shouldn't be in here alone." As if on cue, the patient's voice broke the silence. "He's coming," she rasped, her gaze still fixed on the corner of the room. The air felt electric with tension. The nurse exchanged a worried glance with me, and I could see she was shaken. "Just check her vitals and get out," she said, urgency creeping into her tone. I did as instructed, keeping my eyes on the patient's face while the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Before I could finish, I heard the whisper again, more pronounced this time, the words swirling in my mind, filling my thoughts with dread. I looked back at the patient. "Who's coming?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The nurse shook her head, stern but low. "You shouldn't ask that," when the lights flickered violently, plunging us into a moment of darkness. I felt the ground beneath me shift, an unnerving sensation that made my stomach churn. I turned to the nurse, but she had vanished. I was alone with the patient. "I see him," she mumbled, her voice low and almost teasing, eyes still trained on the corner. "What? Who do you see?" I pressed, my voice trembling now. I felt the temperature drop in the room, a chill that seeped into my bones. She smiled, an unsettling smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You already know." Panic surged through me. I bolted out of the room, heart racing, feeling claustrophobic in the narrow hallway. The whispers escalated around me. Nurses and patients alike hushed their voices as I rushed past. But who was coming? Was it just my imagination, or had I stumbled into something I shouldn't have? I needed answers, but where could I turn? Something dark was hiding in the shadows of this hospital, and I felt it creeping closer. That's when I caught a glimpse of movement at the end of the hall. A shadow shifted and disappeared into the dark. I followed it, against my better judgment, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity. What lay ahead could be the answer I sought, or something even more terrifying. I stepped cautiously down the dimly lit hallway, my pulse quickening with each step. The whispers that had haunted me in room 408 seemed to drift through the air around me. I tried to shake off the dread, but it clung to me like a heavy fog. As I took a turn, I spotted the shadow again, lingering just out of sight around the corner. I hesitated, pressing my back against the cool wall for a moment to gather my nerves. I wanted to call out, but the words caught in my throat. What if it was nothing? What if it was something? My mind raced through possibilities. I rounded the corner, heart pounding. The hallway stretched before me, empty but for a flickering exit sign at the far end. Silence enveloped me, thick and oppressive. I leaned toward the darkness, squinting, hoping to see something, anything that could explain the movement. Then I saw it. A figure stood near the stairwell. Lanky and tall, almost ghostly. It wasn't moving, but something about the way it towered, its head slightly tilted, sent a chill down my spine. I fought the urge to back away, locking my eyes on it. I tried to call out, but nothing came. My instinct screamed to run. Instead, I took a step forward. "Hello." My voice wavered, unable to mask my fear. At the sound, the figure turned sharply, revealing an expressionless face. I shot back, terrified, and stumbled against the wall. The figure hadn't spoken, but I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me, more intense than before. I turned to run, but as I did, the lights flickered again. This time, I sprinted down the hallway, desperate to escape the shadowy figure. I veered sharp right into another corridor, trying to put as much distance as possible between us. As I ran, I nearly collided with a nurse. She looked frazzled, hair disheveled and eyes wide. "You shouldn't be out here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "She's been acting strange." "Who?" I asked, breathless. "The one in 408. She knows things. You have to stay away." "Too late for that," I murmured, still rattled. Before I could gather my thoughts, the lights flickered again, and a sound echoed down the corridor, muffled voices mixed with taunting laughter. It was unnatural, chilling. I could feel its rhythm pounding in my head, pulling at my sanity. "Stay with me," I heard the nurse say, her grip on my arm tightening. But I couldn't stay. I had to see if the figure was still following me. Just as I tore away from her, I glanced back down the hallway and there it was again. The figure loomed closer now, shadows twisting around it like smoke. Panic surged through me, and I didn't think twice. I sprinted toward the nearest exit. As I burst through the door to the stairwell, the darkness enveloped me. The stairwell was even quieter, the only sound my rapid breathing. I paused for a moment, trying to steady myself, when suddenly the lights went out completely, plunging me into pitch black. My instincts kicked in, and I began to climb, moving further away from whatever lurked behind me. With only the faint outlines of the stairs visible, I stumbled upward, hoping to reach safety. But then, as I climbed, I heard it. A soft whisper, right at my ear. "You can't hide." Sudden dread paralyzed me, and I froze on the step, knowing whatever this was, it was about to catch up with me. I had to keep moving, but I was terrified of the darkness closing in. What was I running from? And more importantly, was there any escape? I couldn't stand still. The darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I forced myself to move, inching up the stairs, telling myself that if I stayed quiet, whatever was behind me wouldn't find me. Stealth felt like my only weapon in the abyss. The whisper echoed again, closer this time. "You can't hide." Panic clawed at my throat. I glanced down at the gap between the stairs, half expecting to see something slithering in the shadows. Instead, only darkness awaited. I pushed myself harder, my legs burning with each awkward step. The click of my shoes against the concrete escalated, mirroring my rising heartbeat. I prayed for a landing, for light, for anything but that voice that seemed to coil around me. Finally, I reached a door. I fumbled for the handle, my palms slick with sweat. I couldn't tell if the voices were in my head or if it was the ghostly figure that had returned. My fingers trembled, and I took a breath before twisting the handle. It opened to a small break room. Fluorescent lights flickered uncertainly. I stepped inside, breathing hard. The air smelled stale, like old coffee and fear. I leaned against the counter, trying to compose myself. I had a moment of reprieve, a chance to think. Then I heard it. A soft tap tap tap, like fingernails brushing over metal. I turned, scanning the empty room. The sound was coming from the other side of the door I had just entered through. I held my breath, straining to hear. Please, it was a voice, thin and fragile. Help me. Something inside me snapped. There was no way I could confront whatever that was. I pressed my back against the counter, stepping further into the shadows. But in the silence, the voice grew more urgent. And just like that, my curiosity overcame fear. I eased closer to the door, hand trembling over the handle again. I had to know who or what needed help. I opened the door a crack and peered out. The hallway was still dimly lit, that flickering light in the distance casting long shadows. I felt dread coil tighter around my heart as I stepped out. No one was there. Just the echo of my own hasty breathing. But something caught my eye. Someone had left a medical chart on the floor. Gingerly, I picked it up. My blood ran cold as I read the name on the top, Delilah Hart, room 408. That was the same room. The whispers, the figure, everything connected back to her. But how? What did she know? That S when I noticed something scrawled at the bottom of the page. If you hear the whispers, it's too late. Panic surged through me again, and I crumpled the paper in my fist. I had to find out what was going on, but every instinct screamed at me to run. I turned, ready to flee back to the stairwell, when the light above me went out completely. Total darkness enveloped me again, and the whisper returned, clearer and sharper. You're too late. In that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. Something shifted in the space behind me. I could feel a presence, cold and unyielding. This was not just a night shift anymore. It was a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. As the whispers grew louder, drowning my thoughts, I knew I had to face whatever was waiting for me. What I had stumbled into was about to get much worse. I couldn't move. The air felt thick, wrapping around me like a heavy fog. My heart raced as the whispers intensified, a discordant symphony of dread that filled the room. Then, without warning, the lights flickered back on, casting a harsh, sterile glow around me. Panic surged anew. I scanned my surroundings, but nothing looked out of place, just the break room with its old coffee maker and peeling vinyl chairs. But it didn't help. I felt like I was being watched. Then I heard it. A faint groan emanated from somewhere down the hall. It wasn't Delilah's voice, but it sent chills down my spine. I didn't want to investigate, but my legs moved against my better judgment. It must have been someone else who needed help, right? I hugged the wall as I crept toward the source of the sound. Each step felt both agonizingly slow and painfully fast. Just as I reached the corner, I caught another whisper. "Come find me." I froze, the icy fingers of fear creeping up my back. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see what awaited me. Nothing. Just empty darkness. My gut twisted, but I pressed on, rounding the corner into the corridor. Room 408 was just down the hall, its door slightly ajar. The moaning grew louder. It sounded like it was coming from inside. I approached cautiously, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. I reached for the doorknob but hesitated. What if it was some sort of trick? What if I was walking into something that would change me forever? I couldn't turn back now, not after everything. I pushed the door open slowly. The light inside flickered weakly, revealing a disheveled hospital bed with tangled sheets. The room was empty, but the air felt charged, electric with expectation. I stepped in further, and that's when I spotted a small journal on the bedside table. It was open, pages slightly crumpled. I hesitated before reaching for it, but the need to know was stronger than my fear. The first page had Delilah's scrawled handwriting. My breath caught in my throat. The whispers are not just from me. My heart hammered. Then the words shifted. They want something from you. I stumbled back. I was about to drop the journal when the lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back on. My pulse quickened in the darkness. I was trapped in a room with a message I didn't understand. Suddenly, a soft whimper filled the air, breaking the suffocating silence. "Help me, please." This time, it was distinctively coming from behind the bed. My body refused to cooperate as I turned slowly, drawn by the sound. And then I saw her. A figure crouched in the shadows, hair matted and tangled, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. "Delilah." I breathed, hope and terror intertwining in my chest. She lifted her head, eyes wide, glistening with something I couldn't quite place. "You have to leave. They're coming." As I reached out to her, the world around me shifted again. The air grew thick, suffocating. Darkness spilled in, and the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo. I had crossed a line, and now, I had no idea how to escape it. In that split-second moment, I knew I had to get out, but the door slammed shut behind me. The door slammed with a finality that shattered whatever fragile hope remained. I lunged for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Delilah!" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. "Help me!" She looked up, face pale and eyes wide, eyes filled with terror. "They're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising whispers that echoed like an impending storm. Suddenly, a loud crash resounded from somewhere behind me. I whipped around, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist as the darkness thickened. I felt trapped, hunted. "Delilah, we need to get out of here," I said, spinning back to her. Her eyes darted around the room, and I could see the realization wash over her. She was scared, terrified. But I couldn't let that consume me. I took a step towards her, ready to pull her from the shadows. Just hold on. But then another crash echoed through the corridor, closer this time. My instinct screamed at me to run. I turned, back to the door, searching for a way out. The whispers morphed into shrill screams, and I couldn't tell if they were real or just echoes of my breaking mind. Then I caught movement in my peripheral vision. I looked back at Delilah, who was no longer alone. A figure stood behind her, cloaked in darkness, its form shifting, almost unreal. Its eyes glinted with hunger. Delilah! I shouted again, but my voice cracked. I rushed forward, but the figure lunged, and she gasped. Her voice was caught in her throat. I dove to grab her, but she was yanked back, pulled into the shadows like she was nothing more than a rag doll. I stumbled and fell, the floor cold against my palms. I couldn't process what I saw. The whispers now swirled around me like a vicious storm, and the darkness felt alive. Stop! I screamed, pushing myself up. Panic coursed through me as I scrambled to the door again, pounding on it with desperate fists. Let her go. Don't take her. But my pleas were swallowed by the chaos. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, bright and blinding. In that harsh glow, I could see what had taken Delilah. It was not just one shadow but dozens, all swirling together, their forms undulating like waves of smoke. They moved with purpose, a grotesque dance of malicious intent directed at me. I could barely breathe. What do you want? I gasped, feeling like a cornered animal. The whispers intensified, drowning out my thoughts. You shouldn't have come here. You must listen. They know you. I never wanted to know. Each frantic thought screamed inside my head, but I needed to focus. I had to escape. My hands fumbled at the door again. With a surge of desperation, I rattled it harder. Let me out. And just as hope began to fade, I heard a voice, soft yet clear, cutting through the noise. You must solve the riddle. What riddle? I yelled, heart hammering. I felt the shadows inch closer, closing in, but my eyes darted around and landed on the journal on the table again. The moment I took a step toward it, all the whispers stopped. Silence enveloped me, and for that fleeting moment, I felt as if I were on the edge of uncovering something profound, something that might finally set us free. But then the shadows lunged. I didn't have a choice. I had to grab the journal. As I lunged forward, everything plunged into darkness again. In the pitch black, I realized I was not just fighting for myself. Delilah depended on me, and I couldn't let the shadows win. Then came a voice belting from the depths. Find the answer, or lose her forever. My breath caught. Time was slipping away. I was running out of time. The moment I flung myself toward the journal, I felt a cold grip snatch at my ankle, pulling me back into the void. Panic surged anew, but I fought against it, forcing myself to focus. I reached for the journal on the table, my fingers grazing its worn cover just as the shadows writhed and twisted around me. I yanked the journal free, feeling a jolt of energy. The light flickered back on, revealing pages filled with strange symbols and notes, but I didn't have time to decipher them. I turned to find Delilah, hoping the shadows had released her grip. But she was nowhere in sight. Delilah! I shouted, desperation lacing my voice. Then came a low, guttural sound from the corner of the room. I turned slowly, heart pounding in my chest. A figure solidified from the darkness, a man, shrouded in the lingering shadows. His face was obscured, but I could feel his eyes boring into me, assessing, searching. What do you want with her? I demanded, trying to sound brave, but it came out jagged, shaky. He took a step forward, and the shadows that clung to him seemed to pulsate, reacting to his presence. You've disturbed something beyond your understanding, he said, his voice smooth but chilling. To save her, you must confront the truth. The truth? What truth? I felt the walls closing in, the weight of his gaze so heavy that it almost made me wish to flee. What do you know about her? The figure smirked, and before I could process the movement, a shadow detached itself from him and leapt forward. It wrapped around my wrist like a snake. Panic shot through me, but I yanked my arm back, freeing myself just in time. To my surprise, the man's expression shifted from disdain to intrigue. "You're stronger than most." He paused, the shadows around him swirling in chaotic patterns. "But strength alone won't save her." I glanced at the journal, my lifeline in this tempest. "What do you mean? What is this riddle?" "The answer lies within," he said cryptically, gesturing toward the journal as if it were some treasure. "Only through understanding can you hope to break the chains that bind her." Before I could respond, the figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows again, leaving me alone, breathing heavily. The air felt charged, electric with the uncertainty of what had just transpired. Then I heard a whisper, soft and distant. "Find the riddle. Time is running out." I flipped open the journal, jagged breaths coming in short bursts. On the first page lay a riddle: "In darkness, harmony breeds, two paths diverge, fate precedes. Speak the truth, find the key, three whispers guide, set her free." I frowned, my mind racing. What does it mean? Before I could delve deeper, the lights flickered violently, the whispers returning, louder, more frantic than before. "You must hurry," they cried. I looked around, feeling a chill run down my spine. "Delilah!" I called again, louder this time. This time I had to find her. But as I felt the shadows thickening around me, I knew I faced more than just a riddle. Something wanted to trap me here, to take everything from me. I had no choice but to decipher what lay within those lines before it was too late. Everything went dark again. Fear gripped me. Then I heard a soft voice from the shadows, "You should have never come here." The urgency hit me hard, and I charged into the void, determined to break the cycle. I stumbled forward, forced into the void where the air crackled with an ominous energy. The shadows pressed against me, as if trying to swallow me whole. My heart raced, pounding in my ears, drowning out the whispering voices. "Delilah!" I shouted again, straining to pierce through the thick darkness that clung to me. It felt wrong to stay in one place, but I needed to find her. The journal was heavy in my hands, a lifeline I couldn't let go of. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared a doorway, just ahead. I edged toward it, my feet dragging as I moved cautiously. The soft glow revealed an unsettling scene. The room was empty, save for a single figure hunched over something on a table. As I drew closer, my breath caught in my throat. It was Delilah, though she looked different. Her face was pale, and her eyes were unfocused, staring blankly at the table. "Delilah!" I reached out, but she didn't respond. No sign of recognition crossed her features. I felt panic clawing at my insides. This couldn't be the end. Just then, the figure beside her straightened up. It was the man from before, but he was more terrifying up close. Shadows flickered around him as he held something in his hands, a small, ornate box. "You shouldn't have come looking for her," he said, his voice silky, dripping with malice. "The truth has a way of revealing itself. Are you ready to confront it?" "What do you mean?" I shot back, anger and fear mixing in my chest. I stepped closer to Delilah, desperate to get to her, but he blocked my path. "Just a step too far, my friend. She has made her choice." He opened the box, revealing what looked like ethereal chains, shimmering with a dark light. "These bind her to this realm. You want to save her? Then you must decide, are you willing to bind yourself in her place?" I froze. Could that be the key? The riddle in the journal echoed in my mind. "Speak the truth, find the key, time is running out." His voice dripped with cruel delight. "You'll find that the truth is seldom what you wish it to be." I glanced back at Delilah, her expression still vacant and haunting. If I didn't act soon, I could lose her for good. "What do I have to do?" I tried to sound resolute, but uncertainty clawed at me. The man raised an eyebrow, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something like curiosity. You must choose wisely. One word can change everything. Choose to save her, and you may very well lose yourself. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the lights flickered once more, plunging the room into darkness. I felt the overwhelming presence of shadows pressing in again. Delilah. I called out, but the sound of my own voice echoed back, swallowed by the void. Then I felt a shift in the air, something lurking behind me. I turned, fear igniting in my chest. Something was coming, and I had mere moments to make my choice. Which path would I take? Would I sacrifice myself for her? Or would I delve deeper into the shadows, risking everything? I felt the darkness swirl around me, suffocating and thick. Without thinking, I gripped the journal tighter and took a step forward. I choose to save her, I said, my voice a strained whisper. The man smiled, but it was a twisted thing, devoid of any warmth. Such bravery, he mocked. Now, reveal your truth. Speak it, and seal your fate. I hesitated. What truth could I offer? The words felt stuck in my throat. I thought of all the moments I had with Delilah, how I had failed to see the signs that her struggle went deeper than I had known. I love her, I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. The man chuckled darkly, and the room trembled. A powerful declaration. But love isn't enough to break the chains. He motioned towards the ethereal bindings that still shimmered ominously in the box. If you desire to save her, you must commit to this life. She is tethered by more than mere sentiment. Before I could respond, a rush of wind blasted through the room, extinguishing the flicker of light. Panic surged in me, and I felt the shadows clamoring for my sanity. Delilah! I shouted, fighting against the dread sinking in. Then, something cold brushed against my arm, and I turned, bracing myself for whatever horror lay behind me. I fumbled through the darkness, but the sensation vanished before I could see. My pulse thumped louder now, mingling with a low growl that echoed from the corners of the room. The man's voice cut through the chaos. You still have a choice, but it grows thinner like the light. Commit, and take her place, or let her slip through entirely. I felt my mind racing. The journal, could it hold more answers? I flipped through its pages desperately, scanning for any hint, any clue that could guide me. But in my haste, the pages seemed to blur together, and the symbols transformed into shadows of their own. As I rifled through the book, a sudden image grabbed my attention, a drawing of chains similar to the ones in the box. Below, it read, "To mend the bond, speak the name, but beware the unknown." I frantically searched my mind for the name. What name? Was it mine? Delilah's? Time, the man taunted softly. It waits for no one. Just then, a piercing scream shattered the air, echoing like glass breaking within the dark. It was Delilah's voice, and my heart sank. I steadied myself, trying to process what it all meant. Enough of this, I shouted, summoning what little courage remained. Delilah. I choose you. I will face whatever comes to save you. Silence followed. And then, I felt a strange warmth radiate from the journal in my hands. It pulsed softly, and with it came a flicker of hope. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, the shadows swirled violently, and then a loud crash came from behind me. I turned to find someone. They stood at the edge of the doorway, their eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. That was when I knew I was not alone, even in the worst of times. And whatever lay next would define more than just my fate. It was time to confront the horror waiting in the shadows. The chaos swirled around me as the glowing figure stepped into the light. My heart dropped. It wasn't a monster, but rather another patient, someone who seemed to have been lost in the maze of the hospital's nightmarish underbelly. It was a reflection of what could happen, what I could become. Delilah. I yelled again, desperately scanning the shadows that still curled around the room, trying to find her. "Speak her name," the figure murmured, his voice soft yet resonating through the darkness. "You must break the chains binding her." I felt the weight of the journal in my hands, the rhythm of its pulsing warmth urging me to act. The fear that had been a constant companion now transformed into a flickering light of courage. "Delilah. I choose you. I love you," I shouted, feeling the strength of my declaration resonate through the room. The shadows recoiled slightly, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of her presence in the void. "You must do more than call her name," the figure said, stepping closer, his features increasingly defined. "You must confront what you fear." "Fear? What do I have to fear?" I challenged, my voice steady even as uncertainty gnawed at me. But deep down, I knew. I feared losing Delilah, and I feared confronting the truths hidden within the darkest corners of my own heart. "Your truth, your deepest yearning." The figure gestured to the journal. "You must speak it. Speak her name and your desire for her freedom." The chain in the box rattled at the edge of my consciousness, shimmering ominously, reminding me of what was at stake. Time slipped away, the shadows creeping ever closer. I stepped forward, driven by urgency and a desperate need to save her. "Delilah Hart, you are more than a patient. You are the laughter in my days, the warmth I never knew I needed. I will not allow this darkness to take you." My voice rang out with conviction, emotions rushing forth. "You deserve to be free, to live without fear." The shadows twisted, seeming to wail. I felt a rush of energy as the room shook, the figure watching silently, his eyes filled with an odd mixture of admiration and something darker. "Delilah." I cried again, holding the journal high. I never felt more unmoored, yet so grounded. "You are not bound by these chains. Break free, find your truth." Suddenly, the shadows exploded around me. The air crackled, the whispers transforming into a chorus of howls, but amid the cacophony, I could feel the warmth of Delilah's spirit resonating with mine. And then, clarity. "To mend the bond, speak the name," I recalled softly, the journal vibrating as if acknowledging my realization. "Delilah Hart." I declared, summoning every ounce of will I had left. "I choose you, I stand for you, and I love you. Break the chains." As the words left my lips, a brilliant light enveloped the room. The shadows shuddered violently, retreating as if unable to withstand the force of my declaration. For an instant, I wondered if it was enough. Would it sever the tie between Delilah and this dark place? And then everything collapsed into a profound silence. I felt the warmth surrounding me expand, and the space felt alive, as if a powerful energy was melding the shadow and light. In that moment of stillness, I saw her. Delilah appeared before me, ethereal yet grounded, her eyes wide with newfound clarity. "You came for me," she breathed, and I felt all the strength from before converge between us. "Yes. I'm here. It's time to go home," I urged, fear and hope entwined. But then the figure, now grotesque in his fury, surged forward. "You've not only chosen her but condemned yourself." He lunged, a flick of darkness reaching for me, but I stood firm, holding on to Delilah. "Not today," I shouted, unwilling to let fear rule me. As the final barrier between us tore asunder, the shadows that had once threatened to consume me imploded outward, leaving only light behind. I felt Delilah's hand grasp mine, and together, we sprinted toward the door I'd seen before. The whispers quieted, bending into echoes behind us as we barreled through with an explosive force. The world shifted, reforming around us, and in that moment, I felt a tether snap, something loosening deep inside me. We dashed into the hospital's entrance, and just as we burst through the door, the shadows behind us shrieked in fury, fading into the night. Outside, the moonlight blanketed us in a soft glow. We stood, panting, alive yet raw from the ordeal. I glanced at Delilah, her face illuminated, a smile breaking through. "You found me," she said, disbelief lacing her voice. Still reeling from my own realization, I turned to her, heart pounding. I don't know what just happened. I don't know if we're safe. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. But we are free for now, right? But the ambiguity lingered, questions remained unanswered. The hospital loomed behind us, and the whispers that had echoed in the halls may still haunt those corridors. I don't know, I whispered back, uncertainty tinging my voice. How could we be free when whatever had gripped that place still lurked in the dark? As dawn began to break over the horizon, I took Delilah's hand, knowing we had escaped one nightmare while still grappling with the lingering shadows of our minds. I didn't know if we would ever return to normal or if the threat would re-emerge in a different form. But one thought lingered somewhere in that forsaken place: the shadows would continue whispering. And the truth? The truth hung like a chilling fog, ready to surface again. In each of our souls, echoes of uncertainty remained. It would change how I saw things from here on out. But standing with Delilah, I felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that even in shadow, there is the potential for light.